Well, we have officially finished the first day of school here in our homeschool classroom with 6 girls, 5 who are in school, and this year we are starting 10th grade, 8th grade, 7th grade, 4th grade, and 1st grade, plus a toddler. And anyone who's been around and watching my homeschool prep videos for this year knows that there was some nervousness on my end, even though this is my 10th year of having kids in school and probably my 6th year of homeschooling. We did a little bit of private school after the first year of homeschooling. You'll know that I was nervous because the last few years have been rough. I had a baby 3 school years ago, and then the last 2 school years we've moved once across the country and once about an hour away, kind of into our forever home. And so I've just not felt prepared. I've not felt like I've done a great job of homeschooling. I received a dyslexia diagnosis for one of my elementary kids. And then we also have some neurodivergence, some ADHD, diagnosed ADHD in our house. So just all those things combined, huge disruptions to normal routines with a baby and then moving has contributed to some years of homeschooling that I was just really clinging to the ideas that led me to homeschooling in the first place, which were a lot of Charlotte Mason's ideas that education and learning is an environment that we create in our home. And my goal in educating my children was not to perform a certain way on tests or quizzes, but to raise someone who loved learning and loved reading and loved learning new things through reading. So I was really clinging to those ideas, and in my looking back over those school years saying, okay, but did I accomplish what was the most important? And I do think that was happening even in those times that I didn't feel like I was being like the model homeschool mom. So going into this year, I was not moving across the country, I was not having a new baby, and so I was using that extra time that I had this summer to really prepare for this year. And so I'm just gonna walk you through. I did a great job of filming our first day of school. You know, if you've watched, that sometimes filming the action going on in the house is hard for me because I just forget to set up my camera, or my camera storage fills up and I can't get it to film anymore. So I didn't have that happen. And so I'm gonna take you on a little tour of our first day of school. So the first day of school kind of started the night before. My girls went with my husband to the park where we met some families from our church. We gathered there for a Sunday evening picnic, and I stayed home because one of my girls wasn't feeling well and she was listening to an audiobook, and I was getting their gifts ready for the first day of school. So something that I started doing on the first day of school that I've mentioned in the past is I try and give my girls some new school supplies in a fun way, but I don't really like just buying junky things that we don't really need or things that I'm giving as gifts just to give a gift. And so this year, everybody got some new pencils, which is always a fun thing and always needed in our family. A couple girls got new timers because we use timers a lot, and over the moving twice and all that, some of our timers had just stopped working. And in the past, I forgot to say this when I talked about one of my gifts for the girls, but a really great first day of school gift are little bookmarks for all their books, especially if you use something like Ambleside where they're keeping their place in a lot of books. And so last first day of school, I gave all of my older girls some of those little magnetic bookmarks that just clip around a page to keep track in all of their Ambleside books. So that's a great gift idea if you need one. But then the main gift is that I give them some of their literature books for the year that are really beautifully bound and copies that they can keep for their lives. And I first thought of this because when I started homeschooling, I grabbed a lot of my books from my parents' house, a lot of the classics that I had read growing up. And I just had a brother and he had his own books. But looking at a big family, it was like a lot of these classics were either mine when I was growing up, or we only had one copy of them. And I was thinking about my girls when they would get older and they would go start their own families, and something that I could start giving them that would help them have a library by the time they're an adult. So I do like to give books for holidays and things, but for the school year specifically, whatever literature books they are reading in Ambleside and that there are readily available copies for, especially beautifully printed copies, I've tried to give them a few of those, and I write the day and who it's to and who it's from in them so that they can keep those. And so I think that's a fun tradition that maybe they're not crazy about right now. They'd probably rather get like Legos or something like that. But I think when they become adults, they're going to really treasure that. And also to be able to look at those books and be like, I've read all these, is a cool start to a library. Okay, so I'm just going to run through all of the video that we have from the first day of school and give you a little glimpse into what it was like. And then at the end, I'm going to share just kind of some of the things I did that I appreciated, that helped me feel prepared for the year, and some of the things that went well. So the first thing that I was determined to do starting the new school year was getting up before the kids and getting some things done before them. Now, I have not held myself to this standard for a while because our toddler has just recently started sleeping through the night. And so before, it was very much like, I just need to get the amount of sleep I can get because I know I'm not getting a healthy amount, even if I get up when the kids get up, because we are being woken up by the toddler during the night. So she is mostly sleeping through the night now. And I have a little bit more control about how much sleep I can get. So I have been determining that I will get up before the kids and get some things done. The things that I want to get done are mostly chores that I would have gotten done during the day, that I just feel like I can't be distracted by those when I'm in my homeschool day. And if I save them all for Saturday, there's just not really a day to relax or rest because Sunday is a work day for my husband. So I was trying to figure out what are some things that I normally do during the mornings that if I'm going to homeschool, especially my two elementary kids who pretty much need my help the entire day, what are some things that I could do in the morning before they get up that would free up my time to do homeschooling in the mornings? So I've been figuring out how to have like a bread baking morning where I just get a bunch of bread going. I get all my sourdough going, I make English muffins, and I'm hopefully, once I really fine tune that, going to make a video about that. But that was something that I would work on during the mornings. Laundry that I would normally sort during the day, I am doing that in the morning or the night before so that it's already sorted and I can just be switching it throughout the day. So just little things like that. Obviously, I want some time to have like some quiet time in the mornings, drink my coffee so that I don't feel like I'm just reacting to everything happening to me, but that I actually feel ready when the kids get up. And so another thing we did was we were waking the girls up. And in the past, some years I have just let them sleep when they needed to sleep and get up when they needed to get up. But I feel like this summer we got some good opportunities to practice getting up earlier than we're used to and trying to go to bed earlier than a lot of them want to go to bed. And that was just healthier for our family in general at this time. So I think once we get some of these routines established and we figure out, okay, how much time does this person need for school? There might be a little more flexibility in when they get up, because I have some that are true night owls and they would even do school at night and they like to sleep in during the day. And then I have some that are ready to go to bed at night and would rather get some school done earlier during the day. So we'll see about that. But we all gathered for a breakfast at 8 o'clock. And so the 8 to 9 o'clock hour I had scheduled as breakfast and then getting our morning chores done. And morning chores has been something that I've really been working on all summer, all this past year. It was hard because when we moved, the morning chore routine changes, or like if you have another kid or something like that, there's just little things that can happen that change the routine. And for kids who already have a struggle sticking to a routine, that can be really difficult. And so I just spent the summer really helping us get these morning chores done. And that often required a ton of direction from me for everyone to do what they were supposed to do. Lists don't always work. Checklists don't work for us, and I don't know why. It's almost like they'll look at the list and they'll be like, yeah, I did that, but they actually did it yesterday and not today. And so we still use visual lists, but along with that, there just has to be some checking in on my part, like some reminders, did you do this? And oftentimes they will have gotten distracted on their way to doing it and will need to finish that job. And so that was just something that I was realizing that I needed to be willing to do. That's part of parenting the children that I've been given. And it's not that we're doing something wrong or that they're doing something wrong. It's just helping them learn and grow as a person. So morning chores, I really wanted to have that time free so that I could go alongside my toddler and my first grader, and then anybody else who needed my help. We could eat breakfast together, and then we could have our morning chores time together. And then one thing I've done new this year is I assigned one of my 4 older girls to be a breakfast cleanup person, because often I would be cleaning up from breakfast and I wouldn't be there to help the girls with their routines. And then we would need to get into work and the kitchen would just be a wreck all the way till lunchtime. So I assigned one of my 4 older girls to do that 4 times a week. Well, they each do it 1 time a week. And I put a list on the pantry door that says very clearly the steps that they should do it in. So that was a new routine I'm starting. And so far it's gone great and it's been a huge help. And then at 9 o'clock, we're starting school. So something else I did this year is I kind of gave everybody a 1-hour block of time, because what we were running into is we have 1 piano and we have 5 people practicing on it each day. plus my daughter practices cello in that same room. So that's really 6 different music practices that have to happen. And it can be very loud if something's going on in the family room, which is connected to it. The other thing we ran into was the laptop. We have one laptop, it's kind of a family computer. And I had 4 girls who did math on it, 4 girls who did typing, 4 girls who watched current events at different times. And then we were adding in some other online courses for my high schooler and my middle schooler. And so I was just trying to figure out, last year, we would run into a lot of they were just sitting around waiting for the computer to be available. And so I decided to put everybody into 1-hour blocks. And something that I wanted to do with my girls who do have ADHD, and that I've learned over the years, is to put some of their harder things in the beginning when their focus is its sharpest. And during that time, my 7th grader started her Ambleside books. And this is her first year that she is being totally independent in her Ambleside readings, and she's doing written narrations. So I was really proud of her for taking that step and helping her be a little bit more independent. So she is upstairs, she's in my room, it's quiet there, and she is doing her readings from 9 to 10. And then my 4th and 1st grader, I am doing their music practicing with them during that time. So I'm doing piano with both of them, I'm doing cello with my 4th grader. My 1st grader has just started violin, and she actually practices with my oldest daughter. And then I am having them both listen to their Suzuki music, which is a big part of their practicing. So that first hour, we are using the music room, and the other girls are in different places where they can have quiet. Now, of course, there's the toddler in all of this who, if you've watched my videos, you know she's the hardest part of the homeschool day for me. So a couple of days a week, my mom is in town, and she very graciously takes the toddler to her house or somewhere where she'll have fun. And I know that on those mornings I can plan to get a little bit more done, but a big job for me was just helping my toddler go along with it when she's not having my full attention. She can be very loud at this age, honestly, her whole life. And so it can be distracting to people trying to do school. So just figuring out how to balance that. I haven't really found there's something I can buy that will perfectly entertain her. A lot of things when they're 2, they get really frustrated with if they don't have someone kind of helping them with it. So I do have some activities that I know I can pull out if I see that would help her. But at the same time, I just have to be really flexible and roll with it, see what we're doing. This morning, she played with some of our math manipulatives, which is not ideal because they were a little messy. But I was just also trying to realize that there's going to be some mess to clean up from the toddler so that I can get school done with the girls. And that's a sacrifice that I am willing to make. Okay, so at the 10 o'clock hour, everyone kind of switches routines. And in a family with neurodivergence, I think this is a really good idea because people who have ADHD naturally gravitate towards the tasks they want to do and avoid the tasks they don't want to do more than just like a neurotypical brain would. So with my girls that struggle with that, I'm trying to rotate like some subjects that they dislike and then have something as a reward for working hard at that they do enjoy. And so I think that switching every hour at the younger years, it needs to be switching probably more often than that. But for my middle schoolers and high schooler, switching up things on the hour is really great because then if they also finish their work for that hour early, they can reward themselves with doing something they enjoy. I also use just things like making a cup of tea that will be comforting for my older girls as kind of a reward for doing a task that they really didn't want to do. And I found that that is an amazing lesson in teaching yourself how to do hard things first and then get to enjoy the results afterwards. So at 10 o'clock, my daughter that was doing her computer work moves to her Ambleside readings up in her room. And then my daughter that was doing her Ambleside readings gets the piano for that whole hour as much as she needs it. And she also practices flute up in our bedroom. She shares a room with a toddler. So a lot of times we found like the toddler would be napping and she would need her school books or need her flute out of there. And so we just started keeping her stuff in our bedroom so that she could have access to it all the time, no matter what the toddler was doing in her bedroom. So she does that. And then that hour I have slotted to do math with my 4th and 1st grader and as much Ambleside as I could get done during that hour. And I really found that when I was writing this out on paper, it did not seem like I could get it all done. Knowing that like a math lesson is going to take 20 minutes, I'm doing that twice. And then the reading lessons are each going to take up to 20 minutes. I'm doing that twice. If I'm doing some spelling with my 4th grader, that's going to take 10 to 20 minutes. Ambleside readings are taking 10 to 20 minutes with narrations each. And so as I was looking at it, it just didn't seem like there was enough time in the morning to get it all done, knowing that I was also going to be juggling a toddler that whole time. And so I just penciled it in, but I tried not to get frustrated with myself and definitely not get frustrated with my kids if we weren't able to stick to that schedule. Because genuinely, normally when I'm feeling stressed about something, if I'll just like write it out and see it all out, I'm like, okay, it's doable. Well, with homeschooling, I was like, it's not doable. I don't know how I can get it all done. And so the afternoons for me, I'm trying to keep those free so that I can make up anything that we missed in the morning, especially with the 2-year-old involved. But that was just the goals I set for myself. So I don't even remember what order we ended up going through this first day. But like I had their reading stuff there and ready. I had their math stuff there and ready. And we just kind of would switch off with kids. And I would kind of encourage the one I wasn't working on to maybe do something with the toddler. But sometimes she didn't want to have anything to do with them. So it was just very much a juggling game. But we got it all done. Another thing that was happening outside during this morning is our neighbor, our very kind elderly neighbor across the street, let us borrow his tractor because we had some areas of sagebrush that we wanted to clear. And one of them was on a little bit of a time crunch because I have signed up for this Utah pollinator native plant program and was approved for 5 kits of plants, which is going to end up being 150 native plants that I am being given to start kind of a native pollinator garden. I'm super excited about it. And I picked an area, but it was covered in really huge and old sagebrush. And so Josh, this past weekend, started trying to dig it out by hand. And we realized it was going to take forever. And we saw our neighbor Jim, who's been out of town at a soccer game. And so Josh reconnected with him and was able to borrow his tractor. And I learned the beauty of heavy machinery. Like, I think what Josh told me is this tractor isn't even that heavy duty, like it's more of a hobby tractor, but it cleared the sagebrush so fast and so well. So Josh cleared that spot for our pollinator garden. He also cleared our driveway all the way down to the back of our property, which if you've watched any of our videos about kind of improving our outside, that was like something we wanted to do. And then we want to pave it or gravel it, whatever, so that we can access what will hopefully be like our garden area and stuff back there. And so he did that. Plus he cleared 2 big plots for a garden space so that this winter I can start maybe laying down some compost and some weed barrier, cardboard, things like that to prepare those spots for a garden next year. So that was super exciting, a little bit distracting. And Beatrix did go out for a little bit this morning and ride with him, but he said she was like pressing every button and pulling every lever, so he couldn't keep her out there for long. But that provided me with a little bit of break from the toddler during the morning. Then that 11 o'clock hour, my 8th grader switches to her music practicing, and my 7th grader gets to use the computer for her math and her typing and all of that. And then I'm just continuing in the 11 o'clock hour doing more of the math or reading lessons plus Ambleside with my little girls. I also am incorporating like a morning time that covers poetry and our hymn and our folk song and Bible and memory work with my 3 younger girls. And so we did that this morning. If we don't get it done in the morning, I have the option to do it in the afternoon with them. But I thought our toddler would like to be a part of that. And for the most part, she did. She didn't really listen to the Bible reading, but she liked the poetry. We're reading through A.A. Milne's poems because of my 1st grader. And she really liked reading through those. And then, of course, she loved the singing. So that is something I can kind of pull out of my hat if I can tell, like, everybody needs a little change in the routine and something that doesn't take as much brain power as some of the other stuff. So this is my first year doing Ambleside Online with my 1st grader. And she is a very interesting personality. She's been very eager to do school, and she is very much the type of kid that likes to do worksheets, likes to sit down and write things. And I've not really had that before. My girls were very active. They did not enjoy necessarily doing just busy work. And so she is one that enjoys that type of thing and will do it. But I think because I'm so used to not depending on that or not really planning a lot of busy work, that I just don't necessarily have her doing a lot of that. But the Ambleside readings were a challenge for her. And I tried to explain, like, that's okay. You don't have to understand everything they say. That's actually been a challenge for all of my girls. They don't like to feel like they're bad at something, which I think that's human nature. And so they can put up a little bit of fuss if they feel like a reading's hard. And I just have to be very reassuring, very much like, I don't even understand everything this is saying. Just tell me what you did get from it, even if it's just a sentence or two. And if you'll go back and watch my video on narration, I think that's really important, especially in these younger years, to give them a sense of accomplishment and courage as they come to narrating these harder passages. Because the Ambleside books are meant to challenge them. They're not supposed to necessarily be like fun reading in the sense that they're easy and enjoyable, but I think they do discover their fun once they get into the stories. And then obviously years down the road, they'll come back to these books and be like, oh, this is so easy. I love this, So that was fun to introduce her to some of those books, and also just definitely being careful to be encouraging and to make it seem like it's something I know she can accomplish, as opposed to letting her feel frustrated with herself for not understanding a lot of the deeper language or longer passages than she's used to reading. So 12 o'clock is lunchtime for us, and I don't even have to have an alarm set for that. My girls always start gathering in the kitchen around 12. And lunch is another thing that's been hard to handle, because if I'm working with my kids or taking care of my toddler right up until 12, I'm often not in the kitchen like making this big home cooked meal. And so I wouldn't mind getting some things as I get this new routine under my belt, some things ready like before breakfast in the crock pot or whatever that we can eat. I think that's especially fun because my kids are not big into like soups or things like that, but I do have ones that do like those things, but I often don't make them for dinner because not everyone enjoys them. But I've been thinking about how to make some of those things for lunches. So if we have like a lentil soup, or we have a chicken chili with some type of bread or something, the girls who do like that can have that. But for the most part, I mostly serve leftovers, and then I have just like random things that they can always eat that I try to always have on hand. I have tried to have lunch meat, in the past with bread. My younger girls like hot dogs. Sometimes I'll make a pot of like a tortellini or something like that. So lunch, I'm still figuring out. It's definitely a what sounds good to you and this is what we have sort of thing. I don't like make everyone sit down and eat the same lunch. So just getting creative with things I can put in the crock pot before school starts, or I'm putting an Instant Pot on my birthday list. I had one in the past and I actually sold it because I felt like I didn't use it. I used to have a much smaller kitchen, and so I had to be very picky about what I let into it. And I just felt like anything I could do in the Instant Pot, I could do in the crock pot, which is true. But now that we have an even bigger family and that we're homeschooling and all that, I wonder if I would use it more. So I put the small one on my birthday list. I'm also interested in making yogurt with it, but that's a huge tangent. So anyways, lunch is very much just like I'm usually making stuff for the younger kids. My older girls are free to make something for themselves, or I will make something for them if, it's easy for me to do. So that's lunch. And then new to our routine this year, I did assign a lunch cleanup helper. And so that's one of my 4 older girls again. And it's basically the same steps as the breakfast cleanup helper. But that was another thing, is like, I didn't feel like the kitchen was always getting cleaned up after lunch, because I usually had to go put my toddler down for a nap, and food was getting left out, all that. And then I'd come to cook dinner and it would just be like a huge wreck. So just trying to use all the helping hands we have in our family to their full potential, and letting everybody contribute to these family meals, and also saving myself a bit of work so that I can get right into school with my other girls after lunch and after I put the toddler down for a nap. So on our family schedule, ideally I will have finished most of the 2 elementary girls' schoolwork by lunch. And if not, there's kind of that like 1 to 3 o'clock time on most days that I could still do a little bit with them. But during that time, it's also a time for if any of my older girls needed help with math, like if they went to go do their math lesson and they just weren't getting it, then that would be a time I could meet with them and go over it and help them. That's a time that I do dictation with the girls who need to do that. And that's a time for our older girls if I'm doing like Plutarch or Shakespeare with them, that will do that. So 1 to 3 is a little bit nebulous. The little girls can play if they want to. Like twice a week, my student with dyslexia goes to tutoring, and then once a week we have piano lessons. Once a week we have a cello lesson. Once a week we have violin, viola lessons. So the afternoons are also taken up a lot with music lessons. So I don't have necessarily things that I try and save for the afternoons, but they are available, and I do have times with girls that I can connect with them as needed. And then 3 o'clock is just naturally a snack time in our family. All the girls start coming down to the kitchen about that time, and they're hungry. And so we're trying to just reinstitute a tea time. And something I did for myself to help this is my 4th grader She just turned 10 on Tuesday of this week, actually, was her birthday. And she loves parties. She loves social gatherings. She loves planning them. She loves talking about them. And so I turned over the tea time to her. And so around 2:30, she is going to start gathering up a little snack. If we've had time that day, she might make something. If not, I'm going to try and keep just some little cookies and things in the pantry that she can use for that. She has been learning how to make the tea that everybody likes to drink. And she is in charge of kind of setting that up and helping me clean it up. And she was super excited about that, was talking about it all day, looking forward to it all day, and did a really great job. And so tea time is another time where if I didn't get the morning time stuff done, like the hymn, the folk song, the scripture memory, all that, we can do that at tea time. But I'd also like to incorporate, our artist study. I'd like to incorporate some nature journaling into that time. So that's a flexible time too. But some days, like the girls are at piano lessons until 3:45. So those days I need it to be flexible where we may not have a tea time. But that's the plan, and that's what we're going to institute, especially I think as the weather gets colder and we're inside more. It will be a nice time to spend together. So that was our first day of school. And I think it went really well. So I think when people think of a mom of a big family and like, what is she doing to prepare for homeschool? I'm not really doing a lot with like the curriculums. Although if you'll watch my other videos, like I did have to pick different things. I did have to mark different things and stuff. But the biggest job that I had to do was I had to make schedules. I had to make schedules for my girls, or routines, I guess would be a better word. I had to make routines for their schoolwork. I had to make routines for the housework. And then the biggest thing is I had to make a routine for myself. I had to figure out a way that I could be focused on homeschooling in the mornings and in the afternoons with my girls, and that my other work could be done at other times. And so I would say that's what I spent a lot of time doing, was just figuring out, okay, like how can we keep this people who need to use the computer from backing up? And it's like people are waiting around for the computer and they don't have anything else to do, but they're all saving their computer work for last. Or how can I make it so everybody has a chance to practice music in the morning before the toddler goes down for a nap, but at a time where it won't be bothering other people doing other things? And then how can I still make sourdough, but get it done at a time when it's not during the school day? And so for me, that was the biggest work. And that just took a lot of like mental, like thinking about it all throughout the summer. Like, how can I improve this? How can I make this better? How can I make this realistic? What do I need to drop? What do I need to keep? And all of that. And I would say that was the biggest job that I did this summer. And this first day and week of school, I really got to reap some of the benefits of taking the time to think about that. And I haven't had that time every year, and we've still survived and we've still done okay. And that's where I go back to just trusting like what's really important. A perfectly organized routine and schedule is not what's most important. Actually, it's probably better for my kids to see me responding patiently under stress and under pressure than it is for me to have everything perfectly organized and perfectly planned. And it's also good for them to learn flexibility in how to manage needing to use something that someone else is using and waiting, and how can I find something to do that would maybe help other people while I'm waiting for my turn to do that. So I think some of those lessons are even more valuable than giving your kids a perfectly planned out routine. At the same time, with all the girls and all the neurodivergence and all of that, trying to make things as painless as possible, if possible, is something that I'm willing to devote some time and energy to. I'm also really thankful that I took this summer to rest, and I ended the school year on kind of a slump. Like, we didn't even finish all of our Ambleside readings, but just after having a really hard couple of years, I was like, I need to rest this summer. I'm not moving. I'm not heavily pregnant. I need to take that time to rest, even though I don't feel like I have the time to rest. And I am thankful I did that, because it helped me come into this new school year feeling excited, feeling ready. Whereas I think the last couple of years, I've almost felt like I'm not recovered from last school year. I need more time. Another thing that I feel like was more new to me this year was trusting my own mom intuition in saying what is okay for our family to drop and what I want to pursue. So I'm very much like a follow the process person, very much trust the process person. If someone else has put something together and it's been successful, then I want to do that. I'm not a big like blaze my own way and learn from my mistakes, with my girls, I don't want to make mistakes. I want to give them, the best 18 years in our house possible. And so over the last 5 years of Ambleside, I would definitely say that I very much followed the program closely and tried to do it as perfectly as possible. And I think that was good for me. And I would recommend people, when they're first starting out in those younger years, when you have more control over how it happens, to do that. But with my older girls, I had to start saying, okay, like, what do I see that they enjoy in life? Like, what are they good at? And what do I want them to leave this homeschooling experience with? And feeling the freedom to alter the schedule or the focuses to fit them and to fit our family, as opposed to feeling like I have to follow a process exactly. And I think if you were to ask like the Ambleside creators, they would say like, you need to take the time and figure out what's best for your family. Here's our suggestions, here's the research we've done. But they're very much like, you need to then take your child who you know and help them to learn best. And I would say I felt the most freedom this year, even as I was writing up some of their schedules Sunday night, the night before school started. I was maybe cutting a few books here or there, or changing how I was going to schedule things. And I feel like having done Ambleside for several years and having homeschooled for several years with the same curriculum, that I felt that freedom, more of that freedom for the first time than I had in the past. Another big thing that I changed this year is to keep my mornings free as much as possible. So in the past, sometimes we've had music lessons in the morning, and I really worked with our music teachers to try and get their lessons to at least start at lunchtime or after. And I think that made a huge difference to have consistent morning time where we could get things done. And then trying not to schedule things for myself or our kids that are out of the ordinary in the mornings, because if they can get a good 3 hours of work done in the mornings, the afternoons feel so much better. But if we have something like doctor's appointments, or we have a therapy or something like that, and in the past sometimes I haven't always been able to schedule them when I wanted them, it was just when it was available. And we survived those times, but I think keeping the mornings as free as possible has really helped. Okay, so that is a realistic first day of school in a family of 6. And I hope that for all of you that homeschool or have kids in school, that your first day also went well. And I definitely felt kind of that nervous excitement that I've felt before like having a new baby. Not quite as intense as when you're gonna have a new baby, but just starting a new school year, especially when you're the teacher, can feel kind of nerve-wracking, but also exciting to finally put into action all of these plans that you've been working on. So obviously I will continue to post about homeschooling stuff. It's such a huge part of our life throughout the year, and I'd love for you to follow along, but I hope you all are off to a great school year, and I will be back next week.